Good afternoon, passengers. Welcome to Martel Air. My name's Amanda, and I'll be your pilot for today. Boarding today is going to be a little bit complicated as we're flying the Fokker DR1 triplane from Canberra to Moruya. So, find what spaces you can hold on while I finish up the last steps of the inspections of this World War I antique. Yes, today I've decided that we're going to do a manual navigation challenge, taking this plane, which has a compass, and seeing if we can get ourselves to Moruya on the coast. This should be an interesting one, and we'll see how it goes. So, we've got our in-game paper checklist. So, before engine start checklist, flight plan has been briefed, wheel chocks are in, master electric switch on, fuel levels entirely full, check. And master battery switch off. Good afternoon, passengers. The weather today is sunny with a bit of wind. I'll be cruising at an altitude of approximately 5,000 feet on our way to the coast. Your cabin crew today is me, assisted from a hidden luggage compartment where he is safe and warm by Wing Commander Lamington. And your emergency exits are located everywhere around you. If you're hanging onto the wing and you need to leave the plane, I suggest letting go. I also have some nice little step on each side of the plane up here by me, and the ability to jump, and if you see me leave, please follow me quickly. Our in-flight catering services today are provided by whatever bugs end up in your teeth as we fly. So, I hope you pack some toothpaste. We also have a coffee machine in the airport lounge when we arrive, for those who'd like to support the channel and Wing Commander Lamington's dog treats habit. Okay, engine start checklist. Alternator on, master battery on, fuel shut off is pushed in, mixture full rich, throttle cracked open, area clear, and magnetos start. Lovely. And this is, of course, a modified version with some ground handling and a helmet-mounted radio. And we can see that nice rotary engine is rocking the plane. We're now ready for departure, so please fasten whatever straps you've found to secure yourself to wherever you're hanging on. And turn off your devices apart from those used to watch this stream, although what your devices could interfere with, I dread to think. Thank you for flying Martel Air. We hope you don't die or fall off. Okay. Departing. Canberra ground, Martel 30 with Yankee, request taxi for takeoff, east departure. taxiing, hold short runway 35 by taxiway Kilo, Charlie 4, Charlie Bravo November, Martel 30. Okay. And now the wonderful thing that we get to do of shouting. Can we see the wheels from here? No, but we do get to have shocks away, because this thing has actual wheel chocks. And the wheel brakes that we've added are... Oh! Easing out through this gap here. And of course, in a real plane of this type, this sort of maneuvering would be being done by ground crew. Come on. We're just gonna get over to this, if it will at all let us. And we're going to ignore that fence. That doesn't exist in our world. This thing is a pain to maneuver on a proper airfield. And of course, being a tail dragger, it is also very hard to see forwards. could have sworn I added more ground control authority than this, but it is what it is. We will make do, and we will hopefully not run into anything like those jets. Those don't look that friendly. I'm just going to double check something very quickly, because I am desperately trying to use directional braking. I've just realized I'm not sure if I've got... No, those should be... No, those are the correct buttons. They're just not very strong. That's what we were doing. Let's see, just holding that brake will do anything interesting. Nothing that we wanted it to do, at least. I think this definitely has to qualify for my least skillful taxiing on a stream. Or if not least skillful, then certainly least correct. Yeah, I think I need to adjust the ground control authority on this for anything where I'm actually taxiing. Unfortunately, doing that requires closing the stream, well, not closing the stream, but closing the simulator, editing some text files, and reopening. Okay, we're now pointed towards the taxiway, but this time we shan't overcorrect. Aha! We have a piney tree. Hello, friend. Welcome to the chaos. So, if you didn't get the introduction, we are doing Canberra to Moruya in the Fokker triplane, and the navigation for that is entirely manual. So I have picked some waypoints, the ones that I use when driving, and we will be flying to the coast. And struggling with every turn on this taxiway, because the ground handling procedures for this plane involve those two nice big handles on the rear of the fuselage, where a couple of stout technicians would grab the back of the plane and lift. Once we're in the air, we'll be great. But taxiing on a modern runway, and well, taxiing on a modern airport, yeah, not what this plane is for. So I'm currently at full turning authority from the paltry wheel brakes, that even those are an addition, and the slight turn on the tail skid, and any airflow over the rudder. And as you can see, we're bringing the nose around gradually. And also, as you can see, we've got the ridiculous added traffic lanes and parked planes, some of which have a white livery, some of which have American Eagle, which I've never seen in Australia. I don't think they operate here. From what I know, that's a domestic only budget carrier or something. Okay, so I need to get a little bit of speed going, and then directional brake. Little bit of speed, directional brake. And now we're heading back onto the taxiway. Lovely. So that is actually the tail control that's helping there. And yes, as you can see, I've got, instead of the pre-mapped looking at each of the instruments cameras, I have looking out over each wing, just hanging out the side of the cockpit. And I have looking under each wing, which is really useful for this sort of stuff. Oh, there we go. That sort of speed. We've got some control authority for the ground stuff. And yeah, we just need to make sure to stay under anything takeoff-ish. But given that we are... yeah, we're actually going fairly slowly, so that's fine. Not that this thing needs a lot of speed to take off. So yes, I decided that doing something a bit weird for today would be fun. Because we've had the caribou flights that were quite nice. And after I missed last week because when the arthritis flare is hitting in the wrist that you put on the joystick, like the wrist that I would be using a lot for the stream, I decided it was better to not push it. So next week I will not be around because I will be off at a medieval event, and that is a taxiway in November, which is our runway entrance. So yes, missing next week, but we'll see how this one goes and how long it takes us to get to the coast between the navigational waypoints, because as mentioned, the entire navigational capacity of this plane is a compass and a stopwatch. And here we are at the stop bar. Just pop chocks in. They actually show. Yes, you can just see the chocks through there. And there's the engine complaining. Okay, so before takeoff, check. Control surfaces. Right ailer, left aileron's good. Whoop. Right aileron's good. Elevators are good. Tail fin and rudder, good. Okay, mags. Testing left. Still running. Testing right. Still running. Set to both. And glare shield light is on. Okay. So we should be good to go. Tower Martel 30, ready at runway 35 for departure to the east. 8 knot. Slightly crosswinds. Ready to take off, runway 35, Martel 30. Okay, chocks away. And a little bit of power. Now that I've got my eye in for how to do the ground control on this, it's getting a little bit better. That just shows you that I don't do rehearsals for these flights, I just fly them. And since I've not flown the triplane in a while... Go. And advance the... Ooh, there we go. Turn the throttle up and we start getting air over the rudder. Nose comes forwards. And we pull into the air. Because it's Canberra Airport, we started off at about 1,800 feet. Canberra Tower, Martel 30, acknowledge continue for east departure. And of course we've slightly weather vaned into the wind, but as we continue our climb, we're heading to just eastwards from the 45 mark because we want a heading of 64 degrees approximately. So now we are in the air in a World War I antique. That is too far east. That is 10 so approximately there. And of course, being that this model has essentially a pocket compass mounted on the dashboard, it makes the compass a little interesting to read, because it looks like this. That mark there is 60. So this, and it also does not function if you are not flying perfectly level. Oh yeah, all the dials in this are fully mechanical. It's great. The throttle lever is on the control column because you need both hands on the control column in this sort of plane. Oh. Why is the smoke system on? That's not correct. Yeah, if you've ever tried to use like a pocket compass and found that you have to hold it very specifically, now imagine you're also flying a plane. Canberra Tower, Martel 30, going to 125.9. Canberra approach, Martel 30 is a type Fokker triplane, 5 miles northeast of Canberra, 4,400 feet. Request clearance transition, Charlie airspace. Squawk 0466, Martel 30. Cleared through Charlie airspace, Martel 30. Oh, and you can see that when you've got a bit of wind going, this thing loves to get the bumpity. But we are looking outside and trying to spot the lovely town of Bungendore, but it will take us approximately 10 minutes of flying to get there. And here's our approximately 5,000 feet, which should be enough to get us over the mountains. In theory, this thing might get you up to 20,000 feet, but you'd be cold and grumpy by the time you got there. And yes, on later planes, you would have features such as a vertical speed indicator, which tells you, I mean, seems almost obvious, but what your vertical speed is. Are you going up? Are you going down? Yeah, this thing, you have to look at your altimeter. Is it going up or down? You don't have a turn and slip indicator that shows you what your roll, what your side slip relative to the air is. Yes, taking it up to 20,000 feet, you would very definitely want supplemental oxygen. I think, I'm not sure how they did that in World War One. I cannot take my hands off the controls to go check, but yeah, bottled oxygen is kind of essential for that sort of thing. Also, dressing warmly. I think 12 to 15 is generally considered the limit that you'd go to without supplemental oxygen. In an airliner, the masks drop if the cabin goes above 10,000, I believe it is. Or possibly 15. No, I think it's 10. There is Bungendore. Lovely. The navigational step 1. And of course, seeing as we are flying at somewhere around 70 to 80 knots, we're not going to be getting anywhere quickly. So it's just because we can see Bungendore in front of us doesn't mean we're making the next turn, because we haven't reached it yet. Oh yeah, uncomfortably is definitely the descriptor for everything with World War I flight. So, if you think of the World War I pilot's outfit, the goggles are number 1, and that is because that's basically your entire windshield. And yeah, the fur-lined leather cap, again, very important. Keep your head from icing. Not the rest of your face, but... And yeah, you've got your lovely pilot's jacket. But the one that gets interesting is, in fact, the pilot's silk scarf. It's a classic of, the flying ace with their lovely silk scarf wrapped around the neck. And that, in fact, is a practical thing, not a fashion thing, because when you're flying this sort of plane and having to look around wildly for everything that might be in literally every direction and trying to kill you, when you've got that lovely warm jacket on, fur-lined, probably leather or canvas or both, you'd get incredible chafing on your neck. So the silk scarf is in fact just stop your neck bleeding from turning your head constantly. And we are now passing over Bungendore, so our next turn is to 110 degrees, which should get us to Braidwood. So that is, those are 15-degree markers. We want just in from the 115 marker. And also looking out for our visual marks. This is full visual flight, visual navigation with some Dead Reckoning. So Dead Reckoning is where you have your compass and a stopwatch, and you have your flight times between each thing plotted out. So the estimate on this is giving us a 13-minute flight time on a heading of 110. But as I am not quite so sure of how well it's keeping both heading and airspeed compared to that, we're going to be tracking that a little more freely and doing visual more than pure Dead Reckoning. And the dead in Dead Reckoning, by the way, is deduced. It's not corpsey. Dead Reckoning navigation is used in both light and sailing contexts. The massive problem with it is, in fact, the relevant travel material, so either the air for flight or the sea for sailing, is moving. So you need to include corrections for wind currents, water currents, as they will have pushed you off course. So if you're flying into a headwind, then for a flying context, if you're, traveling at 90 knots, but you've got a 15-knot headwind, your flight times have to be based on a 75-knot ground speed. So if you're doing it via the airspeed and a stopwatch, you need to add time. And likewise, if you've got a crosswind that's pushing you to the left, you will need to correct all of your headings to the left. Which, with modern navigation stuff where it can track your ground speed and course separately, is very easy. And you just make it so that the course is lined up, not the heading. But that's almost cheating. You may as well just go by GPS navigation, as I so often do. But visual navigation. We make our corrections based on landmarks. Going to 118.8, Martel 30. Melbourne Centre, Martel 30, it's time. Fokker triplane, 19 miles east of Canberra, 5,000 feet, entering your airspace. So, when we get pushed off course to the left, we have our various navigational waypoints, which are close enough such that when we get pushed off course by the wind pushing us in whichever direction it happens to be pushing us, then the correction we need to do by the time we get to the next visual waypoint or landmark, the correction we need to do will be something where we can still see the waypoint. If I was doing this as nighttime navigation in this plane, which is complicated and really not recommended, I would in fact just be following highways because those are lit. But it does mean that following... so we're using towns as our main waypoints. And again, those are both on highways and lit at night. But it's fascinatingly tricky to keep track of things. So we have this lovely flat bit that is the tablelands before the mountains that lead down to the coast, and knowing where certain of these mountains are and being able to hopefully visually identify at least one of them and being able to see Braidwood will be how we get our next landmark. And when you are doing a landmark-based navigation, you essentially have an opportunity to reset all of your errors by just recentering yourself of everything got weird, but now I know I am over this thing, so I now know where I am, and I can just go from here. This is why open navigation, both for aircraft and for ships, is so hard, because there's no waypoints. But I know that hill that is just to the right of our nose, and that tells me that we are getting towards Braidwood, which is nice. Despite the fact that the heading keeps wanting to drift a little. But I'm confident that we should be able to see Braidwood at some point in this little arc here. So, the way that you do open ocean navigation is, well, what waypoints do we have? What like visual references of position? So you get celestial navigation, where you have a table of essentially on this day at this time, this star should be over this point of the Earth, this star should be directly over this point of the Earth, etc., etc. And if you have a good enough almanac of star positions and a quadrant or sextant, which is that fancy thing that's got a tiny telescope and a big arc on it that you see old-timey sailors using for navigation. The captain's usually got one. The point of that is measuring the height above the horizon of a particular star. Is that Braidwood? I think that is in fact Braidwood. My sighting that hill was actually correct. Lovely. So, by sighting off a bunch of stars, and you know what angle from directly above you they are, that lets you set, oh, we're probably somewhere on this circle on the Earth's surface. And if you have 2 or 3 of those circles, and you can plot them and find where they overlap, you can work out we're probably somewhere around here. Technically, with 2, we are at one of these 2 points, but the circles are usually big enough that one of those 2 points is utterly implausible as a position for you without teleporting. So we're probably at this one of them. And bonus fun fact, that's how GPS works. It's just that instead of, well, kind of. GPS gets you your distances from any number of different satellites, but they use a different method instead of angle above the horizon or angle from vertical. It's complicated, but essentially you get your distance from the different GPS satellites, and each of those gives you a sphere that you must be upon, aka a 2D circle. So if you have a couple of those overlapping, and the third sphere of you're on the Earth's surface, you can get what your position is reasonably well. Yeah, that's Braidwood, which means we are approaching waypoint 2 out of 3 for our en route navigational things. Approaching, not at. But yes, that hill by Braidwood is a welcome sight when driving back up from the coast, because it tells you you're almost to pies, because Braidwood Bakery has excellent pies. Oof, and that wind is getting a little spicy. Oh yeah, like very brown section of Australia. Yeah, that's the colour of grass. That's what colour grass is. The greenish bits are because that's the colour trees are. Yes, the Braidwood Bakery is on the highway and is one of the oldest buildings in Braidwood, because the bakery has just been there as long as the town has. And the bank manager's office has its own special door into the bakery. Presumably, it's very 19th century sort of arrangement. Even if, it's still a bank next door, but it's, a modern bank that has replaced it. I don't know if that's still the bank manager's office, but the old-timey signage says it is. Just because the bank manager wants pies. That's great. Okay, so we're now over Braidwood. That means our next head... And, we came in from the north, so we're heading a bit south, just to reset ourselves. But, we can see the highway there, which is a pretty good navigational marker for me. So if we set ourselves on that and glance at our compass, we are pretty much perfectly on course, because we want 117. So we've got a that's part of why I screwed up the navigation. That marker's not 110, that marker's 105. That's why it got weird. Yeah, so we want to be heading out. Also, the way that the compass on this, if you're not paying full attention, kinda spins you, it spins backwards from what you think it should. Especially if you're in the bottom half of the compass. Okay, so yeah, those marks are 105 and 120. So we want to be nearly to the 120. And in fact, we want to be aiming for this gap between the mountains, because that's where the road is. And this is the bit where we want to be... We slipped down to 4,400 feet, but we want to be picking ourselves back up to probably about 5,000, just because as we're getting over the mountains where it might get a little bit choppy. So again, we have the hands always on the control column issue that the Caribou presents us with, but a much smaller, much less stable aircraft. So I can't trim this one out to get it riding just right. I have to just keep fiddling. Beverages. And yes, so we see that we have speed, engine speed, altitude in hundreds of feet and tens of hundreds of feet. And we have clock. And then we have compass, where we are heading to the red needle. And we have treibstoff, fuel. And that's essentially all of our flight instruments. No artificial horizon, which is always so useful for a pilot, so we have instead the natural horizon, called looking outside. And we have the nice leather bucket seat, excellent for containing pilot butts. And I'm saying that hidden behind the pilot seat in a nice warm little cabin is a co-pilot seat, presumably with a bowl of dog biscuits. And yeah, otherwise we've got wood, metal, canvas. Oh, and the other thing that we have, of course, flare gun. Somebody had fun animating that. Now, we're going to be using Bateman's Bay as our next waypoint, or landmark for a waypoint, and then turn down the coast towards Moruya. Now, if we were being very brisk, that would in fact be our landing approach. But I don't know the conditions at Moruya. We're doing proper full VFR, general aviation, no bonus instruments. So first we'll be flying in towards the airport, slightly off axis, so we're not on anybody's final approach path. And then we will be doing a flyover of the airport and then our landing approach from whichever runway we decide is most suitable. Why does the smoke generator keep coming on? That's weird. There we have the bay that is Bateman's. It's one of those ones where we do have our visual navigation and the mountain section that is so interesting to drive. Ah, And there, in fact, is the highway. So yes, you can see that it is quite twisty. It is essentially wandering paths and some very strong switchbacks there. That little very sharp one on the right of that pair is Pooh Corner. There is a little cave there filled with Winnie the Pooh merchandise. I have no idea why. It's a tradition. Okay, we've got some traffic out here. Apparently, let's see here, 5 o'clock. No, traffic not in sight. Martel 30, traffic not in sight. Yes, so this twisty road is the Clyde. Well, the largest mountain here is the Clyde Mountain, and there's the Clyde River, so the highway is just the Clyde. If you say you are driving the Clyde. And yeah, on this year's coast trip, the top section of that was covered in clouds fresh off the ocean, and visibility suddenly dropped to below 50 meters. And my speed dropped to a slightly safe feeling. And the way that this engine spins, it keeps wanting to twist us to the left, which means that our course is drifting left every time I take my eyes off the navigation. But that is the bay that is Bateman's Bay. Like, the town is called Bateman's Bay, but it's called that because there's a bay. So I need to keep correcting to that. So our course is now closer to, 125, 130, but that's fine. I wonder if I can get this to give me Moruya. Whoop. No, we didn't want to zoom in that far. I wanted it to give me the airport weather report. There we go. Okay. Looks like there is a... either runway will have a 9-knot crosswind coming into Moruya. We have runway 22 and 36. So no matter which runway we're going for, we will not be coming in for the runway 18 southward approach, so that makes that easier. Since we won't be doing the approach that we're essentially lining up for now anyway. So we'll see how the modelling of the Bateman's Bay Bridge is at the moment. There has been the fun thing of they've built a new bridge that is high to replace the old low metal caged lift bridge, which some people were very upset over because, old landmark. But the new bridge is so much nicer to drive. Sometimes it tries to model both bridges or show one as a water texture that looks bridgish, which is hilarious. But we'll see how Flight Sim's doing on that. And speaking of, in amusing news this week, we've had the release of Flight Sim 2020 and an impressive level of launch day problems. It's hilarious. So Microsoft did not allocate anywhere near enough servers, despite being Microsoft. So for the first day, people who paid hundreds of dollars to get the new game couldn't even log in because the authentication servers were completely inadequate. And apparently all of the textures are now being sent from their servers instead of stored on the local hard drive, because Flight Sim 2020 takes up a lot of hard drive space. You could easily do terabytes if you had the space and allowed it. So Microsoft heard that. They're doing their best to fix it up. But when they've not allocated enough servers and enough transmission infrastructure, that doesn't help. So, you've had people set the 8K textures maximum everything, and they couldn't read the controls inside the plane. But when it is eventually settled and also significantly on special at some point, I've been having a look at some of the early views of it, and they're doing streams of it can have more checklist content, which I know you're excited about. Like, this plane has almost no checklist content. It's kind of dreadful, really. Shame upon the channel. But Flight Sim 2024 adds in being able to do the pre-flight walk around to check over, the tires, take the pitot tube covers off, check the flight surfaces, all this, and then get into the plane and do it. So they've added in doing the walk around, and I'm going to be adding that to my checklist once I'm on that updated version. And yep, we've still got the black line of the old bridge. So we are now approaching Bateman's Bay. It said that was, the navigation thing says that was meant to have been a 15-minute leg. Not too far off, but not entirely accurate. I am mostly doing headings and visual waypoints rather than the timing based. But yes, here is Bateman's Bay. And in fact, I put my navigational waypoint on that bridge just because it is such a visual landmark. And yes, one fun thing about the Fokker triplane having no artificial horizon is that you really can't tell what level is just by looking. Like, I'm having to do constant, just slight forward pressure to keep it going, and just slight right bank pressure to keep it going. But we can start a bit of a descent now because we're past the mountains. Now, our next official navigational heading is 175, but the one thing that we really know about Moruya Airport is that it is on the coast, and we can see the coast. We follow the coast. I am so tempted to try doing a loop over Bateman's Bay. Yeah, let's... This could be the worst idea. we actually got that fairly well. Ended up on the right heading and everything. And I can in fact just see one of the lights on Moruya Airport essentially dead ahead, so that's encouraging. And one of the good things about doing interesting flight maneuvers at 3,000 or 4,000 feet is that the ground is a lot further away. So even if that had screwed up, I had space to recover. But we're now going to start descending. Because we want to be coming in probably about 1,500 to 2,000 feet when we get into the Moruya Airport space. Plankton cat mug of tasty caffeine. Yes, one of the interesting things is that one of the systems that planes did not have at this point is the ability to trim the control surfaces. So, on later planes, you adjust the thing that, more or less sets the default position for your control surfaces. So when I'm talking about trimming the aircraft out, I'm talking about, well, it wants to pull up by this much, so I'm going to fiddle with the default position of the elevators until it wants to default to having the nose where I want it, not climbing or descending. And it wants to roll by this much, or it wants to get the tail pushed across by this much, so I'm going to set the ailerons and rudder default positions. So you can see if I let go, this thing just wants to go up diddly up because it's essentially non-adjustable trim but some nose up trim, and because of the way that the engine rotates, especially if I turn it all the way up, it will eventually just start to drift to the left a little. Okay, switching over to Moruya Airport traffic. Forgot that it shows that when I'm bad. Okay, so updated wind. We have an 8-knot headwind, 2-knot crosswind on runway 22. So we're going to be going for runway 22. Because landing this thing in a strong crosswind would be fun. But yes, as you can see, just behind where the wing cross braces are, there is runway 18 of Moruya Airport. And runway 22 is the crossing runway. And coming into it with a heading of 220 approximately means that once we have overflown the airport, we will want to fly away on a heading of 040. And yes, that is me looking across at my cheat sheet compass rose, where I have all of the runway numbers, which is the runway heading rounded to the nearest 10 with the final 0 chopped off, and a leading 0 added if needed, except in the USA. So, you know, you add the leading 0, it makes it sound better. It makes it much more clear that you're saying a runway number. And yeah, so I've got each runway heading and its corresponding back course just as 2 circles of numbers. It was a fun little arts project, getting it to exactly sit as I wanted to. And it means that I can glance across and go, yeah, runway 22 is runway 04, which is, look, I could be subtracting 180 or adding 180. Well, adding 180 mod 360. But, look, the reference chart is a lot easier. Now we're picking up a bit of speed there. And if we are turning to 040, that is mostly east, so we will be heading out over the water. So it's going to be a left traffic pattern. But we will start such that the airport is on our left and we can do an inspection. Moruya traffic, Martel 30, flying the airport at 1,000 feet, entering the left traffic pattern for landing runway 22. And everything looks adequate. Oh, there's somebody taking off on runway 36. And somebody is... yeah, they're landing runway 36. That's wild. I'm not going to do that, but runway 1836 is longer, which may well be their reason, but this thing is designed for fields. So yes, we will be... I'll be keeping an ear out on the radio for traffic. We've got somebody taking off from runway 36, which I believe we saw on the runway. Yep, they're about halfway down. So it seems we've got a little bit of traffic, but we will be paying attention. Moruya traffic, Martel 30 is on final approach runway 22 for landing. And if you don't like it, you can get out of my way. That other guy was saying that he was on base, not on final. And we cut our engine back. Oh, we are going quickly. Nope. Moruya traffic, Martel 30 going around. So that is called. We did not spend long enough washing off our speed before actually coming in for the landing. And this thing has bugger all in terms of brakes. Going to spend a little bit getting our altitude back. I think I might switch to runway 36 just because Since we're landing on concrete, we don't have the drag from the grass to slow us down quite so well. Of course, that's going to be an interesting one to taxi back from. But yeah, with everybody else doing runway 36, that's just going to be easier. So let's re-establish the airport. It is... yeah, we do not want to be crossing that just yet. We want to be getting a little bit more of our altitude back. Is there somebody else on final? And they're going to be quicker than us. And that's runway 36 there, so... Moruya traffic, Martel 30, entering downwind leg, runway 36. And we just bank until we're heading southwards along the coast. So when planes are coming in for runway 36 at Moruya, you get them flying over to Ross Head, aka my favourite little town on the entire coast. And we've had most of an episode of rambling about that. And that's just ahead of us in the distance there. Now I can't see any of the other planes, but we're going to start our turn. One of the other navigational features that you get so used to and so lazily reliant on is the distance meters. Okay, now that's too high, too fast. But the trick is getting this thing slow enough to not stall while doing this. Like, the way that you brake when landing... Moruya traffic, Martel 30 on final approach, runway 36 for landing. So, the way that you slow yourself down on the runway, which you may have seen I was doing during that aborted landing attempt, is once you are slow enough to not go back into the air from pulling up, you essentially pull up and stall the plane while already on the ground. You don't crash because you're on the ground, but stalling creates a lot of drag. So I want to keep it to maybe 70 or 80 knots. But with my hand on the throttles, in case I need to slam them forward again. Yes, when I tried to stall as a set of brakes, still had a little too much speed, and instead of stopping, we went up. The other thing that does is dig the tail hook into the grass. Or tail skid. Ooh, bumpity, bumpity. Runway, runway. Side slipping. We've got time. We've got time. There we go. Bounce. Engine minimum. Both wheels down. And we are on the ground. And here we have a turning bay, which is useful because, as we saw, this thing handles on the ground approximately as well as a goose. But after all of that practice, it starts to just work a little. Yeah, so what I need to do is get the engine going a little harder, such that we get air over the rudder. Because the rudder is nice and big, and we'll just kick it all the way across. You know what? We're taxiing on the grass. This thing can do that. And, not taxiing in the trees, but I trust that more than keeping clear of everybody else who wants to land on that runway. Oh, of course, it wants to turn left a lot more than it wants to turn right. That makes sense. That's why that turn went so well. Gyroscopic precession. Oh yes, Moruya Airport is small enough. So, oh yeah, there's the next plane. Hey buddy, you glad I got off and taxied on the grass for you? Yeah, that landing roll seemed a little short. I think the AI is cheating. Traffic, Martel 30 is crossing runway 22 on taxi. Nobody has announced any runway 22 operations, but good practice. And yeah, we're just going to take ourselves over here and park by the fuel pumps. But on the grass, it's fine. Better on this plane anyway. Yes, this thing is... like, these are... it's an interesting one to land because it's just got none of the modern conveniences. Strong brakes, strong ground handling. Yes, you mentioned being on a bus, so I figured that was either distraction, having to get off the bus onto another one, something like that. But having company for chattering away to has been quite nice. And we will put our wheel chocks back in. double check that those are there. They are. Lovely. That is our parking brake. Oh, you can see the engine is starting to rock the plane. Pull out our checklist. Okay, a shutdown checklist. Mixture to idle. Mags off. Pull the fuel shut off. Lovely. And there we go with a finished set of our shutdown checklists. And just having a nice look at that Royal Australian Flying Corps, or Australian Flying Corps World War I livery for the German plane that I made and am so very proud of. So, attention passengers, this concludes our flight from Canberra to Moruya, and we here at Martel Air hope you've enjoyed your time in our rickety kite. There are no doors to open, so please unstrap yourself from whichever bit of the fuselage and wings you've secured yourself to, and you calmly deplane in an orderly fashion. Our baggage handling services today will be provided by our wonderful passengers, so thank you for not leaving any of your luggage behind, if you manage to bring any. Any personal belongings left behind as you leave the plane will be assumed to be a present to the co-pilot and enjoyed thoroughly. Thank you for flying Martel Air. We hope you don't die. Whoop, wrong button. So, hopefully you enjoyed that little bit of silliness and a strange navigation. It actually went pretty much to plan, which for pure visual navigation is actually quite something. Often that tries to go ridiculously wrongly, but hopefully you've enjoyed that. And I will see you, hopefully, in a couple of weeks. Pausing just to see if you have any final comments once you get out of not the time vortex, but the public transportation vortex. I am glad you enjoyed it as bus distraction and diversion. Hopefully your bus was not diverted. But yeah, I think I will leave it there. Thank you very much for the company. I will see you in a couple of weeks.